a lot of folks, even some task force members are meeting for the first time. I think we'll go around the room. And first I'll go to Leah, who I think you've met her on one of our task force meetings before, one of our virtual meetings. And you want to say the introduction?
Planning department. I started last April, so yeah, excited. So I'm excited to see you all in person and get this going again.
Hi. Oh, you, me. Hi, I'm Kate Angie. I'm with Renaissance Planning. We are the consultants helping to kind of take this to the next step in the visioning study. Yes, there we go. Okay.
I'm Becca Boothby, also with Renaissance. Good to be here with y'all tonight.
Yeah, I think we'll just go around the room.
Sure. I'm Catherine Martin. I live in Lorton Station, so.
Okay.
And I'm Tony Martin, and I live in Lorton Station. I'm not a member of the task force. I'm just squatting and piggyback.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Walter Clark, and I'm also the planning commissioner for the Maplewood.
I'm Tim Reiser, Lorton resident and general. Struggling with trouble.
The original.
Originator of the.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Christine Moore, supervisor, storage chief of staff. And Lorton resident and also an instigator in my own way. Yes.
With Gorm, I'm a Lorton resident also, and been playing in the land use things, like Tim, for about 30 years.
I'm here for 30.
That's about why I want this stuff.
I'm Dale Brumberger. I'm the immediate past president of South County Federation, lived in Lorton, starting 33 years and 2 weeks. So been here a while, and immediate past vice president. He's the president of the Federation.
Great.
By the way, Tony Martin is on the land use committee, so we get to claim him as well. There's a time when he needs to come to land use and give us intelligent feedback.
I'm Nick Berth. I am the co-chair of this task force. I'm also the president of the South County Federation, the land use chair of the South County Federation. I live in Occoquan Overlook HOA, where I'm also the president.
With the Henley, Lorton residents and the vice president of South County Federation.
Hi, I'm Brittany Choi. I'm the Overlook Point resident, which is right across the street from here. And I'm raising 2 littles in Lorton.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angelique Brown Anderson, Lorton resident and member of the Lorton Valley community.
Hi, I'm Leanna O'Donnell. I'm with the planning division and the Department of Planning and Development. I work with Steve and Leah. And I first think some familiar faces from the your planning days.
Okay.
So we want to grab Tom there.
Nice facility.
County staff.
In transportation.
There were no road signs.
That's the problem, though.
Better find it.
We were picking on you.
We said, leave it up to the transportation guy to get lost. I'm just joking.
Because the staff didn't have any road signs for you. So that's part of it.
Humber, come senior planning.
Hi, everyone. I'm Patricia Walters, one of the assistant division directors with cultural recreation and community connections, and I oversee all of Region 1. So from Lorton all the way down to the next.
Good evening, Katina Matthews, the Neighborhood Community Services and Social Impact Manager for Inclusive Engagement and Targeted Interventions, and also Lorton resident from Lorton.
Great.
So as you all may know, Megan Van Dam, who's our original branch chief overseeing the study, she's moved on to a new role in the Department of Housing and Community Development. So at our next meeting, we're also hoping that you'll be able to meet our 2 dual branch chiefs who'll be working on the project, Salem Bush and Graham Owen. So that's for the next meeting.
Stephen, you have
Zoom as well.
Yeah, so because you can't see them up there, you also can't hear them through up
Right,
there, but
okay.
we have a few members from our team, so I'll make the screen there, so can you put your volume?
Um,
So,
oh, it's not. Okay. Lance, you can.
Try to send the link to this in there.
Are you ready for me?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lance Dorn from SB Friedman. We are part of the consulting team, and our focus is on real estate market strategy and working with the project team to help identify strategic actions that could be undertaken to jumpstart development. So hoping to meet you all in person at one of the next meetings, but obviously today joining virtually. And my colleague, Andrew, I'll hand it over to him to introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. Great to meet you. My name's Andrew Glazer. I'm an associate at SB Friedman, and I'll be working with Lance on some of the market strategies he just mentioned. So great to meet you all and hope to see you in the future.
Oh, Kathy is here now. Go for it, Kathy. You're muted, Kathy.
So there you go. Sorry about that. The sun is setting, so does my brain. I'm Kathy Galvin. I'm with Renaissance Planning. I am the design principal for the office, and I'm looking forward to getting to know the community and hearing about the issues.
And Chase.
Yeah, hey everybody. My name is Chase, and I'm also with Renaissance Planning. And I'm very excited to virtually meet some of you and looking forward to the work that's going to be done. I'm really excited about this.
So yeah, I'll be listening in. Oh, okay. Andrew, he's on the. You would like to introduce yourself? Okay. Andrew with Fairfax County Parks. So yeah, they'll be listening and won't be so much able to be interactive given this, but they're here.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. You're not coming through clearly all the time.
Okay, we introduced you. Hopefully you'll be able to hear clearer now.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Now let's see if we can get. We try to come in person to make technology. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
So tonight, for tonight's agenda, we're going to begin with an overview of how the task force visioning efforts will be used in the next phase that will include the drafting of recommendations for updating the text of the comprehensive plan. After that, I'll be turning it over to the consultant team leads from Renaissance Planning for an introduction. Well, they've already done the introduction, I'm sorry. But they will introduce you to their company and their some of their past work, and they'll also lead the remainder of the discussion for tonight. Next slide, please. So since staff has become involved in the project, we've heard a lot of great ideas from the task force, and now we're starting to draft plan updates that will reflect your visioning efforts. The updates will be guided by components that we have listed here as the foundation that includes task force discussions, the Board of Supervisors authorization of the study, resolutions that have been made in your task force charter and guiding visioning principles, and also the comprehensive plan and community feedback. As we begin this phase, staff will be updating the text of the first three. As we begin in this phase,
Okay.
so as we begin this phase, staff will be starting to update the first three sections of the adopted comprehensive plan for the Lorton South Route 1 Suburban Center. And that's what we've listed here at the very top, the character, concept for future development, and major objectives. So once that text has been drafted, it'll provide the task force. It'll be providing the task force, will be providing the task force the draft for your feedback in advance of an upcoming meeting. And then at that meeting, that's when the task force will work towards a unified vision that will then be used to inform the land use recommendations that guide the county's decision-making process for future development proposals in the study area. So here we're going to take a close look at the key components that the Board of Supervisors authorization directed us all to consider for the plan amendment. And then to the right of that, you also see a map of the study area that generally follows Lorton Road from Silverbrook Road to the east. And then we have Lorton Station Town Center at the northern end of the study area. And then it follows Richmond Highway from Fort Belvoir down to the Occoquan River. On this map, you can see how the study area is centered in the Lorton South Route 1 Community Planning Sector and Suburban Center. And the list on the right provides some additional objectives that the Board of Supervisors authorization sets for the study. So the map here shows on the left shows the all of the land units within Lorton South Route 1. And oh, okay. And I'll send this out to you to So as we draft the vision, it'll also reflect the 7 guiding visioning principles that the task force adopted with broad support from the community members who have participated in the outreach and engagement opportunities that have been offered. Other primary factors that staff will be considering as we develop the plans text are listed here. And once the initial draft is complete, it'll be presented to receive your input. Since our last task force meeting, staff has been analyzing development data and land use policies for Lorton to help bring the planning and transportation consultants up to speed for the study. We've also researched policies for other areas throughout the county and even in neighboring jurisdictions. And we've consolidated all this information and gathered with the information that we've gathered from our work with you. So we're now developing an outline for the text of the Lorton Visioning Plan Amendment that can be recommended for adoption by the Board of Supervisors ultimately.
I'm looking for it, slides, whatever. But going back to the beginning, especially the first community survey, and was still present in the second, stuff like that. There's definitely some interest, significant interest and stuff. And I'm trying to paraphrase it. People can correct me if they think it's wrong. But that people didn't want to wholesale change the community character. They wanted to improve it. Anyway, I just didn't see that recognized in any of the comments so far. And if anybody disagrees with me, please correct me. I disagree.
Okay. We've got a second disagreement. Okay.
The reason we have, and that's because there's still some disagreement in some of the things I think that the task force had in mind. That's why we haven't really, that's why I'm not going over like particular specific notes at this
I
point.
was just looking for some sort of, and I would refer you back to, the results of the 2 surveys that have been done, and I think you'll find that present.
We're definitely using the 2 surveys. We're also using we'll be using the information from the 2 community workshops too. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to bring all the information together and draft a vision. And when we bring the vision to you all, that's when you'll kind of see what's coming from.
Yeah, and I will. Action now, so. Make that comment.
We're not changing I mean,
No, I'm talking about. It seems to be going away from the goals of. The task force at the point, beginning into the nitty gritty. So I hadn't seen that in the first four songs.
yeah, we'll just be trying to consolidate the task force's ideas into a vision that you all will discuss and come to some consensus on. So we need to. So here I've highlighted a few examples for how visioning is referenced in recent comprehensive plan update that was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in 2021. This study was in the McLean Community Business Center, and we didn't want to give this as an example for what will happen with the plan text for Lorton, but we just wanted you to see how visioning is now being expressed in the comprehensive plan, and the visioning work that was done for the McLean Community Business Center was also done by a community task force similar to yourselves. So you'll see some of the ways that the word vision is actually expressed in the comprehensive plan, and that's kind of where we're going with this to start. And then once you have a vision, that's when we're really gonna be able to piece together the conceptual look of what it takes to achieve that vision, along with the land use planning goals that also support that vision. So with that, before I wrap up, are there any more questions? If there aren't any more questions, I will turn it over to Renaissance Planning for their introduction.
You can stop
Jump the
us at
gun.
any time, so I need to stand to talk because I can't sit. Thank you all for coming out. I appreciate the fact that some of you have been doing this, I think, since 2016. Is that right? So it is a long time and there's probably some planning fatigue. I can't promise you the world, but I think what we hope to do is get to a finish line of an adopted vision by at least this group that there's some consensus around, although it sounds like we still may not have that. So that will be one of the first things we try to tackle. So thank you for having us. Again, we did our introductions. This is our team. It's a combination of Renaissance Planning and SB Freeman. And SB Freeman and Renaissance actually have done a lot of work together. And we are comfortable in the space of trying to imagine a vision for the future, but understanding kind of market realities and market dynamics and have it grounded in that. So I think you'll see our team complementing each other. We also do a lot of work in what I'll call transformation of suburbia in the sense of where people are kind of saying we like our suburban community, but we may want a few more amenities. We want a little more urbanism. We want more walkability, those sorts of things. And that's really what we've been hearing and looking back at over all the planning documents. And yes, not wholesale change, but definitely some incremental change and some key maybe catalyst areas that could be very different. So that's what we want to reconcile as quickly as we can in this study. So this is the space that we know how to work in, and we're really excited to be working with you on this. Our understanding of kind of where you guys are and what we've heard so far is that there's a desire to be a place, a destination, not just a through place. You've got this amazing VRE and Amtrak coming through. Obviously, you've got 95, which is the lifeline of the entire East Coast, running right through your community. But what's here that makes people want to stay here, shop here, live here, maybe even work here, and having this be a place that is more recognized as a more coherent place and community. We know that, again, you've been at this for a while, so we just want to build on the work that's been done, figure out maybe where there are some maybe differences of opinion and have some kind of work with you to bring you to some level of consensus. And ultimately, though, this vision plan has to set the foundation for the ultimate comp plan amendment, because the comp plan amendment will help guide future land use policy, help guide future investments in infrastructure and all of those things. So that's what our charge is. And what we've heard is that, there's been a lot of different visualizations and mapping and lots of words put together, but we're going to try to create a story here and a narrative that is recognizable to you all as, yeah, that's the place, that's the vision we have for Lorton, both in words and pictures and those sorts of things. And again, we're not starting from scratch. So we hope that we can confirm with you all what has already been stated and then turn that into both a visualization that then also can inform the county kind of policies that are needed to make that vision a reality. So we have a very short schedule because again, I think people are ready for this to be wrapped up. We just kicked off. We're running till September. We're gonna have 4 touch points with you all. We're also gonna do some additional stakeholder and public outreach. In particular, our friends at SB Freeman are gonna try to talk to some of the property owners of the commercial real estate that's in the area and really understand where are they at. Are they looking for redevelopment or are they good where they are? Are they looking to do some facade upgrades or, you know, what's going on in those locations? And then we want to talk to the community again. This location is such a wonderful spot that I think is, if we are able to talk with community members again, this is such a great spot. It's where community comes to gather. And we did a site tour today with a couple of folks from the task force and county staff. And what we heard is that there's a desire to have more places like this where you know you're going to run into your neighbors and there's a place that people kind of can gather that isn't just going to a retail or a restaurant. So we're going to be looking for those opportunities throughout. So when we think about what we've seen on the ground and what we've heard from folks, what we're trying to better understand is how much change is desired. You know, there's a lot here that's not going to change. Majority of the area is residential patterns of development that aren't going to change. So when we talk about change, we're talking about maybe some very small areas, but those small areas could have a big impact. So the question is, what is the readiness and desire for change here in Lorton? And we want to be sure we define that very quickly, because that will help us really understand what is the policy, you know, policy recommendation to make that happen. What does the market say about that potential change? Is the change ready tomorrow? Are there people knocking on the door to come and redo the shopping plazas or not? Are there more developers that are trying to come in and maybe put some more density in housing or not? What's the market really want to do? We want to understand from kind of the social cohesiveness. You know, we've heard that there's a desire for more places for people to do things, but is there a way to add programs on top of those places so the places you have actually become more robust? There's always something happening on a weekend and you know you're going to run into your neighbors. So some of the softer infrastructure, we may explore that with you guys and make sure we get that in the vision if that's desired. And really the physical environment. It's not easy to change what's already been built. And that's what a lot of the aspirations that we've been reading is maybe looking at. When you say you want to make a place walkable, it means you're going to make it maybe a little less desirable for a car. That means you're going to change the way people move around. And that's not inexpensive. It's not insignificant, but it's also doable. And so the question is, where are those places that you're ready for that kind of change and you really want to advocate and push hard for? So these are the things that we are going to explore. What we know and has been done so far is you do have guiding principles and you've identified all of your area-wide assets and you've identified some focus areas, again, where maybe some change is desired. But when we look at all of that geography, a lot of it doesn't change. What we are looking at are these kind of strategic areas where maybe some change is desired. And then overall connecting the place, overall making this a coherent kind of community so that people, if you're anywhere in Lorton, you know you're in Lorton. And that's one of the things we've heard consistently from you all. So we want to focus in on those areas where there's maybe a desire for more of a land use mix. We want to be sure that there's, again, when we look at what's been done so far, make sure that we did talk to the community and we'll go and talk to them again. And we know a market study's been done, but we brought on some market experts just to make sure we can kind of validate the work that's been done, maybe give it a quick refresh and also look at some case studies of other communities like yours and how maybe they've addressed their desires for economic development. So when we look at what's been done, there's been kind of these framework maps and framework plans that were put together, and it started to identify what I would call kind of these primary nodes of activity, places where you know you're trying to get people to go to and are key destinations and community gathering places. There's also a desire based on this previous work to better connect those places and not just connect them by cars, but connect them through trail networks and bike networks, and maybe even transit gets stronger in this area. And, you know, the goal is to really maybe look at overlaying some of these community-wide assets and making sure that there's like a coherent vision here that kind of takes the connectedness, the centers and the economic development objectives, the community development objectives, and really comes together as a whole. And so here's a set of questions that I have for you based on what we're seeing. Again, we're kind of coming in from the outside, brand new perspective. And what I'm starting to see is that some potential policy changes that are on the table are when we talk about land use, development intensity and density, that there are some key nodes where you might want to move from more of a suburban footprint to more of a town center footprint. And I want to pause for a minute and just kind of, by a show of hands, does that resonate? Is that what you all said kind of yes to? Some, not 100%, but in some locations, yes. Okay. And if you're gonna maybe do some more town centers in some of these existing commercial areas, maybe some residential intensification around that. Is that desirable? Is that what people have said? Not as many hands are up, but there's some support for that. Okay. A little bit, little bit.
I think everybody recognizes that it will take some to make them economically sustainable.
Right.
But density, I mean, residential density, just to have the density there. I think the majority, I think that's what you're seeing. The less.
So there's a recognition that if you want more to do locally, you need some rooftops to make that work. And you ask any retail person, they'll tell you that, right?
I think what we're trying to get to is putting the kind of the schematic or the depictions to paper to say, you know, during that process of the community survey, a lot of things were kind of asked for, and some of them a little crazy, but in general, the theme was there. And I think it's a theme that everybody feels like here that the weekend hits and we all leave town.
Gotcha.
Get whatever we want. And some things have to be here and I live on the western side and Linwood and Tim there live on the eastern side. And we never meet unless we've been here. So things like this, there's no kind of central place. So, you know, with what that density is, I think we ought to be open-minded about it and try to see what will it take? So is it 200 units? Probably not. Is it 20,000? Nobody's gonna want that either.
Right.
There's somewhere in between these crazy numbers where everybody will, not everybody may agree with it, but at least we will be able to say what people have asked for is gonna cost this many. It's gonna take this many.
Right.
What I don't want to see happen is we fall short. And much like where Kathy lives and Tony there in Lorton Station, it just wasn't bold and big enough. It was too small. And if we end up with something that doesn't attract the developers and doesn't bring what everybody wants, and we get something where, much like Lorton Station, you have those medical offices on front row in that horseshoe area, you know, I think we'll have failed our task.
Okay. Any other comments? Yeah.
You'll see here representing different parts of Lorton.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us come from a different perspective in that regard. In our neighborhood, people relocate there and located there for the density, for the transportation, for the promise of an urban center that never came to fruition. And then the local businesses also state what you said, they need increased traffic. So I think that you'll find in our area a lot of support for increased urbanization.
Mm-hmm.
We recently had a neighbor, for example, move from North Old Town. They wanted that density, but not other things that came with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we can make it attractive to that.
Mm-hmm. So there are some places where maybe a little bit more density is desired and desirable, and then there's other places, no, that's not where we want the densities. Okay. So some of the other things then we've been seeing is with that you know, we've talked a little bit about the residential intensification around the town centers, but we've also noticed there's an awful lot of industrial. Not every industrial property is the same. Is there opportunity for some of that to be redeveloped? Is there some interest in that? We saw some language about that, but just generally, is that a direction you want us to explore? The answer, yes? Okay. Heads
But I don't
nodding.
think the county would let you embrace it.
Well,
About to say,
we're visioning. We at
Yeah,
least
we're
need to,
visioning.
we need to understand, maybe, we understand that industrial land is incredibly valuable. The county's running out of it. So it's not something you take lightly.
Please take my comment as that I don't want that to happen.
Gotcha.
I do want it to happen. We're told all the time, that we need all the industrial we
Yeah.
can get. But there's some prime places and frankly, very high profile places in Lorton that are industrial. That it's really a shame that one of the main routes through Lorton is dead. Right
Right.
up to the gateway to Fairfax County. It's
Sure.
all industrial.
Yep.
So in my personal opinion, and I've participated in, comprehensive plan nominations in the past to try to change that were rejected. But anyway, so just don't take my comments as
Yeah.
I'm not in support of that.
Yeah.
When I tell you that the county is not in support.
Sure. Okay, and then the last one is just more non-residential opportunities. So having more places like this, more places where people don't have to leave the community to do things. And we've heard that across the board. What we've heard and what we've seen in the previous documents about transportation is that there's a desire for more of kind of the bike ped, just the non-auto connectivity for the area. That said, this is a pretty car dependent place. So you're gonna need to still plan for the cars, and you're gonna plan for safe cars, and you're gonna plan for, you know, ways to move around. But one way to maybe think about doing that is to think about the different street networks, and are there some, what we like to call 2 streets versus 3 streets? 2 streets are where you really want your pedestrians. It's where you actually are trying to slow the cars down and make it a calmer place, and you enhance the pedestrian environment. The through streets are the places you want to keep the traffic flowing. And you want to do that still safely and aesthetically pleasing, and you can still do things to make those roadways nice, but you're not really trying to put people on every street in Lorton. So that's one way to think about it. And then taking better advantage of the fact that you all really are at this amazing crossroads where you've got 95 feeding you, as well as VRE and Amtrak. What else on transportation? What's not up here that you guys kind of said is an issue or you need to deal with?
if I could.
Yeah.
Speaking individually, that I-95 artery you referred to is really an aortic aneurysm for us.
Okay.
It's not a through or two, it's an around. And that then changes the character of 2 streets and 3 streets.
Okay.
And that's one of our, and our county has done everything it can to try to mitigate that in a lot of ways.
Right.
But there's only so much when you have a license plate from Massachusetts and I'm trying to get further on down 95 and I'm on Waze. That tells me to get off here and go around there. And your complexion of a neighborhood or a through street then changes immediately. And so there's some things there that are a greater head thing.
Yeah.
About how that would happen.
Right.
If I would offer that.
Yeah. How do you beat the algorithms? I mean, that's the, you know, how you think about the fact that you become the spillover when 95 shuts down, right? Yeah, that's a unique challenge.
Traffic is like water, right?
Yeah, it's just gonna go where it's ever gonna go. That's right. That's
Right now, part of the problem is we clog our streets up with traffic that's not ours. And it's just passing through.
Yeah.
I would rather be stuck behind Linwood or Dale here than I would somebody somewhere else. So
Yeah.
if we're looking at, a larger density and it does somewhat clog up our streets, it might not be actually that bad. Because it will be more us, because other people driving down 95 will be like, well, I'm not getting off there. Much like as you come down 95, I used to live at the corner of Alban Road and Rolling Road. And that gets backed up so bad that I wouldn't dare to get off there now. I just keep going straight because I know that particular place is no better than keeping going on 95.
Yeah, good points. Yeah.
What I don't see there is, making better exits off of 95 when you're
Okay.
going southbound.
Okay.
It bogs up every day of the week.
You talking about when you get off southbound there?
If you're going southbound, yes,
Yeah.
southbound exit, then you
We stop there.
there's space available. I put it up.
That whole, just that whole.
She's repeating everything I said this morning. when we started.
We also signed it, I think you already had it earlier, but also think, we do have Amtrak, and Amtrak is about car commuting out of the area, right? So we're gonna get the people in our neighborhood, we want them to be able to come back to stay.
That's a congressional thing, I would assume, in order to have Lorton be a stopping point in order to gain entry on Amtrak. Because right now we have to go to Alexandria to do that.
Right, right. Yep. Good points. Yeah.
We're just gonna add two other issues. The first one is Amtrak's line for the auto train can be really difficult
Yeah.
during busy times. And that does cause a lot of traffic problems, especially with out of state. And the second is we have a really good bus system that goes to the Lorton DRE. That's not up there. And that's taking advantage of a lot of the community that lives right around here that will walk to the bus. And I would love to personally see better walking paths for people that don't have cars. There are quite a few in our community to get and access that transportation.
Great.
On the
Any other-
transportation, Tom, we had, I think, submitted a list of kind of items a few months ago.
I remember getting a list that a lot of the issues were outside the jurisdiction lines, it's kind of Woodbridge, is that separate list?
I mean, I might have referenced that, but the majority of them were in the Lorton, proper area.
So there is a concurrent transportation study. I don't know, Tom, do you want to kind of just speak to how transportation will be addressed through this process? Yeah.
DOT and DPP have a relationship. DPP kind of heads up the effort to identify vision in the land use. And DOT plugs into their models and does their analysis, operational analysis. And we look at a sort of advice for conditions as well. We make sure that the transportation systems will function properly and comfortably around the land use vision. So we have a consultant separate from Renaissance, HNTB, that has so far done an existing conditions analysis. And we're about to have them do what would happen in the future if the comp plan just doesn't change the analysis. And give us a baseline comparison. And then when this effort is the land use vision is established, we'll test that and compare it. So we'll be continuing. I think there'll be the task force meeting with more of the transportation focus where I think we'll get back on the same page. We had some recent conversations. There were a lot of it, so we need to refresh.
Sure, yeah.
But the good news is, because that's happening concurrent, we've got that data, you know, we can understand which of these streets are carrying all the load and where maybe, you know, the through and the two streets, we got good data by working with them.
I would imagine we need to move this further down the line for transportation.
Yeah.
to kind of see
Yeah.
what we're doing.
But we don't want to get too far ahead of them because we want that feedback loop to make sure that, you know, we don't come up with a vision that they say, guess what? We can't do that because X, Y, and Z, we don't have capacity. So transportation, yeah.
Yeah, a couple other transportation assets. One is future and one is existing. The future would be maybe related to transit is like an express connection to express bus connection along Route 1 or wherever it is to connect to Metro. And then that could also connect to the existing transportation center would take some collaboration with the next county in Woodbridge, not that far down Route 1. There's the Amtrak transportation center right there that would be nice to connect, be able to go south also.
Good comments.
I just want to say, for the transportation issue, I think in general, I believe we want to limit the desirability in general, like coming through the streets of Michigan. We are a crossroad. Everything's going through it, and those create large rivers that separate the community dramatically. So slowing those down or making them less desirable is not to deal with internal traffic, but just to minimize the interest for others to follow is the right approach. I think you
Yeah.
mentioned that, but I think that's a key piece.
Yeah, good points. All right, anything else on the transportation side?
I would just like to say, that same thing, you know, where it's been brought up a couple of times now about like discouraging cars and stuff like that. Your point, I thought, was absolutely spot on, where yes, there's places where you can do that, but you have to recognize that automobiles will likely be a part of this community, you know, for a long time.
Right.
And the one thing that I want to just make sure we maintain for an aging population, and I think of my 84-year-old mother, when I say this, we're starting to have like arthritis problems and stuff like that. So, and she's 84 in every way, you know, but we're trying to keep her self-sufficient, you know, doing her own grocery shopping, that kind of stuff. And one of the things my sister and I are doing is trying to shrink her circle of where she drives to and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that we at least preserve part of the retail experience in the community. So someone like my mother, everybody will be like, and hopefully I'll be as good as good shape she is at 84, shrinking a little circle, can park their car in the handicap place in front of the grocery store and go in and do the grocery shopping and come out and go home. And I just want to make sure that we at least preserve some opportunity in Lorton for that kind of thing there.
Yeah, absolutely. Aging in place is a huge part of what communities are really trying to do, which is to still have things close when you can drive, but what happens when you finally can't drive?
Right.
What are the alternatives and
Well,
having things close enough together
At the
and
point that she can't drive anymore, none of my comments apply. So I'm talking about.
Yeah, I hear
We're
you.
trying to keep her self-sufficient
Yeah,
at this point.
yeah.
And hoping to get, you know, another 5 years out of that or something
Yeah.
like that. But yes, she will have to stop driving at some point. But
Yeah.
At this point, we're just trying to scale it back slowly.
Right.
And she's cooperating so far.
That's good.
Do
That's good.
you think we need a further bullet then? Because I think there's agreement that people are saying about that there will be an automobile usage of some kind in order to make this 2040.
Yeah.
That you need to put in a parking asset.
Yep.
That part of the plan has to be for accurate or for place parking in order to have access
Yeah,
to these.
Frankly,
One of the-
all of these is the grocery store.
yeah.
Well,
One of the nice things that you're seeing across the country though with parking is between our cars driving themselves, getting more and more that way, and just the value of land is getting way more creative about parking, which is, there's nothing worse than seeing empty parking lots that never get used. So how do you better manage parking? And if you're gonna build new, do it in a really smart way that you don't need as much as we once did.
Agreed.
Even though people are still driving, we can get more creative with, but you're absolutely right. This is going to be still, you know, a car dependent community based on the settlement patterns, and that's okay. But when we create the centers, how do we make those and the other strategic locations so that if you don't have a car, you don't want to have a car, there is better transit happening, that can function too. But yeah, we'll add some additional bullets. Yes, Kristen.
The one thing that I would add that we talked a little bit about today when we were touring around is we have an amazing amount of trails. You know, the road just got wide and we've got this huge path and we have the CCT and all of these things kind of coming through here. But we also kind of have islands too. So you have the shopping center where Amazon is, and then you've got, you know, your community of Lorton Station. All kind of disconnected. So is there a way that we can connect these areas better? And then, you know, at some point have it in some sort of way all connect.
And better connect by the trail network. So
Yeah.
the dream would be there's this interconnected trail network that you can get from one side of Lorton to the other,
Yeah.
off the main roads and on a trail network.
And I think maybe Walter said it today, but, you know, having a bridge, you know, between the shopping center and Lorton Station,
Sure.
or opening up that RPA and having it, you know, maybe those are two streets.
Right.
Then, so I don't know how you incorporate that, but yep, you know, when you're in Charlotte and you're downtown, everything is connected through enclosed walking.
And I just wanted to add too, when we're looking at creating this unified vision, some of the things that you said, Linwood, it informs us to how we aren't just looking at transportation in a vacuum. So we look at transportation, we're also using your guiding vision and principle that set for health and recreation that says ensure the health and leisure needs of people living and working in Lorton are met. We're also looking at the equity and access, foster an environment of collective support and empowerment for people of all backgrounds and ages. So each of the guided vision and principles, if we look at it the right way and when we come with this unified vision, each of the guided vision and principles are even going to support each other. So
I absolutely think we can have it all.
yeah, so and that's what we want to try to do, bring as much in everything, everything that we've heard, like we know there's some
Keep
things.
the grocery store on the outside of the hub, then it has a parking lot.
For mom, yep. All right,
On that point though.
yeah.
We do need to, your mom probably isn't a big spender, right?
No, so she doesn't need the little shops and all that kind of stuff, so she
doesn't.
She does.
But other people, I get it, but other people want those other shops and stuff. And I don't think we're here trying to attract the older generation who is more intrigued.
Well,
As much as we're gonna need a balance. of younger
the
people.
vision and plan has to be for everyone though. So that's why we'll bring all these 7 things together and try to find a plan.
The younger people who like to spend every penny they get. So,
It's
no, let's
not
check
either
that.
or, right?
Smiling, that's certainly, I think there's a vision. I see the shops kind of towards the middle of these hubs. And the stores that my mother needs, towards the outsides that are still walkable from the hub and everything, but have opportunities for parking and access, for somebody that has to drive from outside of the hub.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like we have to have parking opportunities on the outside of the hub for the people that have to drive to the hub. And then the hub might be as self-sufficient that you can make it. I truly believe we will have something.
Yeah, there's a planning term of designing for people who are 8 and 80. If we do universal design, right, it's a comfortable place for someone who's 8 years old and on a bicycle and somebody who's 80 and is still driving or not. So yeah, these are good comments. All right, let's keep rolling. In the area of, again, potential policy changes, the parks, recreation, environmental areas, the 2 big things we've heard here is that, first of all, with all of the new quote land and dedicated parkland, you have tremendous assets in terms of open space here. It's quite frankly, I'd never driven and seen kind of all of the newer stuff, and it's phenomenal. I live in Arlington. I'm like coming out here to go there and do this. But is there a way to better connect that through the trail networks to make that accessible so that you don't have to necessarily take your car to get to all those places every time? And there is this desire to preserve some of the higher value ecological assets and that main one, Becca, you know the name that's, I'm gonna mistake me,
Laurelville.
is it the River Creek?
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Pohick Creek, which we've been told there's high ecological value there. And so how do we retain that or protect it while also though it's a critical potential connection that could be made. So that's going to be something to maybe explore. On the parks and rec and environmental, what else? What other bullets aren't here? Or are these the right bullets?
The trails that we have right now, we have absolutely outstanding recreational trails. Most of the time you kind of actually drive to recreate on them and stuff like that. Basically, there's a lot of miles of trails on it, but there's no connection to the hub right now. That's all being worked on and stuff like that. But where I believe that we're falling short is the trails in the hub, as has been described earlier in this meeting and stuff like that, about being able to go off away from the main roads, get from one place to the other within the community.
Right.
That's to be what we really need to focus on.
Okay.
Never take our eye off the other recreation trails.
Right.
But I think overall we're doing a great job on it. It's this central hub.
Right.
And some activities.
So Becca walked tonight. You walked from here to the Gunston Plaza and there's a pretty nice trail that was, there's a walking path. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Exactly.
This is about 30 feet of no path, of no trail. It's
Right.
dirt. And somebody in a wheelchair
Right.
can get down.
But that's
entire
what's
path.
interesting,
Would you
right?
describe it as, would you describe it as nice?
It's a way to get there. So what the hope is.
That is no-
No, it is not currently nice. So what we're hoping for, right, is that these places physically are not far apart. We also stood today at Pohick between Gunston and the marketplace, and you can see both from one area. And so how do you make it so that someone who is not in a car driving, probably 50 miles an hour, not the posted 35, also feels safe there. And it could be another opportunity, to connect those. How do you bring connection when really it's physically, geographically, it's there in a way, but yeah,
It could be better,
experientially
could be
not.
stronger, yeah.
So if I could offer some language that,
Yeah.
that we would potentially look for partnerships with homeowners and citizen associations and the park authority in order to create those connections. I think that Christine was talking about.
Yeah.
Where you're connecting those small pieces. I'm thinking Pohick Estates is a great community, single family houses, but they can't get to Lorton Station because they have to walk along Pohick Road.
Right.
Sweet Jesus. So, I mean, when you plus the truck now, 2 trucks now parking there because there's no other parking, and so they park along the side there. So I mean, there's just some maybe some wordsmithing.
Mhm.
If an HOA was offered an opportunity to have a path to connect on into another place, that might be something they'd be interested in. When approached, when coming through, the park authority property around the central green, I think is an excellent example. You have really diverse usage, from mountain biking on across the street to just a 1/4 mile loop around that, as we watch kids on little bikes, big wheels doing that all the time. That's what you want to look for.
Right.
But you can't get there. You can't really get there easily from Cross Point. You have to go all the way up to 123 and you have to come down Lorton Road where the path is now located in order to do that on one side of the road. You can't get there from the other side, from Kavanaugh Crossing, you can't get there.
And it's gonna take public-private partnering to solve some of these gaps. Yeah.
I was gonna add, I love what you said earlier, add programs on top of the existing. And there you have the Parks and Recreation, so, I think we could examine really as a county, because we have many county programs, for example, the farmer's market. That are run by the county that could be beefed up to be in alignment with the identity of Lorton. So for example, I just came back from Louisville. Louisville is cool, completely regentrified new area. They have a flea market, just like what they had in South Africa. Where they have local beers, bands, family kid games going on. You've got like produce you can buy, outdoor vendors, all in a walkable parking lot to existing condos, old buildings. It's artsy, it's got funk, it's got style, it's something that we've read in our reports that people want. And certainly where we live, that people move to get. So that would be interesting to add, but that would be policy changes, I think, because it's managed more at the county level. Don't know.
Or nonprofits or business associations, like there's other ways to skin that cat too. And I think though what we're talking about is, make the most of what we've got with maybe some programmatic things, and that could be a theme to explore. Okay. All right. The last, anything else under parks or Parks and Rec and environmental? Yeah.
One thing that I don't see on there, and I don't know how you would incorporate it, is water. You're surrounded by the Aqua and the Potomac. We have a lot of amazing water assets, and so, is there, and we have a lot of recreation on the water all around us. So
But it's not part of the identity. It's not written down as part of the identity. So how do we pull that in better? Yeah, okay.
You mentioned that because I think that river is one of our greatest assets.
Yeah.
I love the river. And I grew up in an area near Lynchburg, Virginia, and they have totally changed that area, developed, and they used the river as like their focal point. And I was like, oh, maybe we could do something down by the river. But I don't know how the land use policies and all that, so I don't know if it's even able to do anything about it. But we were mainly focusing on the connectivity that we have now and how we're gonna do it in the future, but see something down by the river, when you drive into Lorton and you see this beautiful thing along the river, and you're like, what's that? You stop there and you go there and see what they're doing. 'Cause that's how Lynchburg is. You drive down and you see the city. And it's like, what's going on down there?
Yeah.
And they also have the train tracks too.
Right. So tapping into that resource in a maybe better way.
The Occoquan River,
Oh,
I'm thinking of the water down south.
oh, okay. Yeah, there's, for what it is, I mean, there's not a lot along that fucking river, given what it is where.
Right, right. But you all do have access. That is the tail end or is our map of the study area. It ends right at the river, so, okay.
We've got great parks and good access that all the parks operate at capacity, all the summer months pretty much. But you have to drive a party into it.
Right, right. But you're saying that the park that is there is,
Several.
yeah, and they're well used and well utilized, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay. All right, the last kind of, I guess, catch-all is just other supporting infrastructure amenities and public facilities, and it really kind of just building on the defined centers of activity where people can gather, and that's building on maybe what you're calling for. It could be, you know, how do we create these great places where people want to be? And that placemaking, again, you've got now this kind of with the redevelopment that's happened at the former prison site, you've got now a pretty significant nod to the arts and the arts community, and that's being supported. So how do you build on that? There's a lot of things between water and arts that there's an identity here, and it's just how do we tease that out and have it so that you know you're in Lorton when you're in Lorton. So those are some of the things. So this is kind of what we've heard, and I guess kind of being mindful of our time tonight, just a couple of things we want to ask you. And we kind of went through the first bullet, so I'm not going to redo that, but I just wanted to kind of get a nodding of, hey, this is what we're seeing in terms of policy direction. Is this the direction we still want to go? And then what are some of the missing aspirations, which I think you've talked about, but let me pause on that. What hasn't been said tonight that is in your mind about the future?
So lighting, solar lighting in the areas, especially when you're talking about connecting trails. I wanted to stop you earlier, but when you're speaking about connecting trails, safe lighting,
okay,
along those trails, even under the train track, the viaduct.
Gotcha.
Safe lighting, if that area was connected, if it was walkable, you know, having good lighting up under it, clean and everything, people would be more apt to, you know, attempt to walk.
Well said.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, sure, places like lets you know that there's a trail there. When you
Right.
see, if there's something along like Lorton Road out near me, you don't really know that there's a trail back there, but if you saw like, you know, those low level lighting.
Yeah.
And that new lighting that like they have at the police stations is incredible. I mean, it's not your lighting of old that just kind of blares out in all directions.
Yeah. Dark sky lighting is good to pursue. What are we missing in the aspirational part of it?
The ski, the indoor ski.
Oh, yeah, we've heard about that. Right.
And how that, I mean, I see a direct connection with the arts and kind of this outdoor skiing, biking kayaker, boater demographic. But tagging, you know, into that, making it different. I was with some friends from Fairfax County, in Louisville, and all of us commented on how cool it was and how much there was nothing like that in the DC area. So, I mean, I think that if we make it unique, that they will come.
Okay. You're right. That there is this kind of emerging with the mountain trails and all of the recreational assets. Then you put a ski resort on top of it, an indoor ski resort. You're changing a lot in terms of what is here for people to do. So good point.
A concept that we've talked about, that would be nice to achieve, and it reminded me when we talked about the ski bank, is trying to put assets that is going to support this lifestyle and this vision and all that we all have.
So you're not afraid of bringing in some outsiders to support, so that you're not relying on just local rooftops to support some of these centers? Yeah, okay.
I mean, I think that the context that was discussed in the past, and I'm not saying that we can't rely on this, was that we could do it with less rooftops if we brought in people from the outside. But I'm just telling the context that was discussed. I'm not saying that that's a totally feasible, I'm saying, but at least if we're looking at things, talking about bringing people in from the outside only makes the businesses healthier.
Sure.
And more bodies and doors.
And I don't think that's an either or either. It's a both, if we do it right. Yeah.
And we need it, following up on that, because Lynn was right about this, we're gonna have the indoor ski, we have the Workhouse Arts Center. People are gonna be drawn to those, they're gonna come here, but once they're here, they're either gonna stay around or they're gonna leave. We don't want them just to kind of come and then leave. The idea is to sort of get them here, then they're gonna need to be fed, they're gonna need to be spending the night, there's gonna be events that.
We need to get opportunities to leave some money.
So, well, people feel good when they're spending money. That's why they do it. So we want to make sure, what the idea is vibrancy.
Yeah.
So you've got to have that. So we definitely need to be able to think ahead and make sure that we have enough things for people to do so that when they come for the ski, they're here to take advantage of other things too.
Yeah, excellent point. Okay.
Can I
Yeah.
build on what Tim just said?
Yeah.
If you do research on the auto train, there's 250,000 riders every year that are in now, they want to spend some money. You're here for a few hours, need hotels, 250,000 people a year.
Yeah, no, I think that's a huge unrealized opportunity for sure.
One question is, and I've wondered this a lot of people in Fairfax County, or even you go out of Fairfax County and they'll say, oh, it's like you live in a strip mall because there's so many chains. Is there any way to build an opportunity zone to capitalize on this mom and pop, this local artist, like, I hate to say like cost housing for artists? Do you know what I mean? Like, I know, in New Jersey where the prison is, they did that. Or how do you get those organic mom and pops to shape that identity?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's where you get into some of those programmatic, models, because that's what it's gonna take. And if you were to say redevelop any of these shopping centers and there was enough support to say, we wanna incubate some of these areas too for small mom and pops, that could become part of the vision too. Yeah. Were you gonna comment? All right, since I wanna hit the last bullet, we know that another consultant team kind of got you to this point. Is there anything, what advice do you have for our team, given that you've been at this since 2016? Think big, okay, all right. What else?
If you talk about public input again and tell you before you have something to show them, give them a screen again.
Wait, say that again?
My first question to you was, so are you gonna do another community survey? And if you say yes, I'm hanging out.
Okay.
Now, that's not to say that with absolutely everybody here supports community input to this, but you have to have something to show. Before we
Don't ask a blank question at this point. We're past that
The
point.
question has been asked like 4 times.
In general, the issue is, I think we all know and all generally agree what we want to get. Linwood and I both agree what we want in general. What the challenge is what does it take to make that happen?
Okay.
And then when we find out what it takes, then we may come to different, levels of expectations. So it might be, I might be fine with that. He might not be fine with what it takes to get there. But what we both don't have is what does it take to make this happen?
Well said.
Yeah.
So where
is connected to the how much,
Right.
and then how is really tertiary.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going to say you're going to redevelop the Gunston Shopping Center, which you did the walk down, and when you walk by, did you notice across the street's a water treatment plant? You didn't have a smell. The smell was so minimal, it's not even funny, because the county's invested an awful lot, because at one time, it wasn't like that.
Okay.
But
So it's
if you're going
improved,
to
yeah.
invest hundreds of millions of dollars into redeveloping an area,
Mm-hmm.
and we're also going to now quintuple the amount of sewage intake that plant will take, given the Tysons and given the county plans. What are the plans to continue to update that facility such that that still will be a zero issue?
Right.
Because nothing will be better than to have a great place to shop and be and hang out and have a drink or whatever. But you can't sit outside.
It's the best thing there, it's the best thing ever, but it's not.
It is the best.
But it's not.
That's not perfect.
But it certainly is. I'm concerned about, when I read online that we're going from some 2 million to 10 million gallons in treatment. That kind of volume has my attention,
Sure.
and how we go about doing that. And the stepped increases, and I know there's money invested. I know Supervisor Spork is good enough to share some of the long-range plans budgetarily for Mount Vernon District within that. And that's a tremendous amount of money. Is that enough to continue to guarantee what you were able to watch, to experience say, on your walk down?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Excellent points.
So I'm gonna put somebody on the spot who may or may not have been heavily involved in the visioning in 2000 and who led that effort.
First 10 years for most of us. But
So what lessons learned? Yeah. Yeah.
Finally, your 2000 vision, it's here. So as you're looking at this, I'm just curious what you think.
Well, I'm thinking of concentric circles and measuring success. So your first circle is this surrounding area. The next one expands out to stores and shops beyond where we are now. How, I don't want to say revitalize, but continue to vitalize those areas, bank and vibrant, and up to the work and up to and including the Workhouse Arts Center.
Right.
So that you're looking at all of this as a whole and have a strategic goal, how you, and I think how you measure success, how you measure vibrancy is going to be key here. Because those are three different areas. And how they connect and how you measure them is critical, I think, for defining success, defining the long-term future. I think all three of these concentric areas are on the cusp of potential upgrades and changes.
Yeah.
To make them additionally vibrant, especially as you look at all the focus on the Arts Center, as you look at all the attention and curiosity about the ski slope.
Yeah.
And if you look at what people would like to do in terms of this as a walkable, vibrant area. So, but I think connecting may help. And the issue that plagued all of this is the traffic from 95, which clogs these streets at certain times and it makes, safety the bigger issue. And how you manage that will be key, and that's coordinating with UDOT to the study that they're doing. In terms of improving that flow.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like, and I don't know the answer, but when you say that, I think, how do you prevent that without also, you're still going to prevent your own residents from being able to get from point A to point B? That's going to be the tricky part, right? You can't just say, we don't want them to go through. We still want to get, that's a hard challenge. That's a hard challenge, but that's what Tom's going to solve for, right?
He's still smiling.
He is. He's big smile. All right. Any other guidance for our team or thoughts you wanted to share with us tonight? Well, our job is not to reinvent the wheel here. There has been a lot of work done. We will not ask open questions about vision. We will start to come back. And I think what I also heard is putting a little more pen to paper that isn't just a 2D map, but starting to visualize some of these places where change might be desired. Understanding quantifiably what that change means in terms of the kind of economics of it all and viability of it all. And really looking at how a little bit, if we're talking about connectivity of the trails, there's a how there that's got to be worked through. So, you know, those are some of the things. And celebrating some of these pretty transformational things that have occurred. I mean, the redevelopment of the prison site, the fact, you know, there's some big things that are happening that are really taking shape that I want to be sure we capture in this, because I was pleasantly surprised. I live in Arlington, but I haven't been down in this area since I took the auto train probably 6 or 7 years ago. So it's amazing. It's a beautiful location. There's a lot of great assets. So how do we capture that and build on that and get a good vision documented? Because we also heard from the task force that there's not been a coherent vision put forward. And that makes it really difficult when developers come or there's prospects, you know, you don't know where you're going if you don't declare that. So that's what we hope to do and do with you all. So with that, we thank you for tonight. And if there's any parting remarks.
I was just gonna say, from the staff end, while they are doing the visioning that comes across graphically and visually, staff's gonna be working with you all to put the vision to put the pen to paper for the vision. And that again is where we're gonna have to have some talks and kind of figure out where the give and take is with the task force discussions, you know, iron out some of the differences, find some compromises, or, you know, vote, you know. I think Nick was saying, you know, if it comes to a certain point where we can't find consensus, there's gonna have to be some voting, because we have to come down. We have to run in parallel with what they're doing in order for this whole thing to work. Some of the things they're going to be doing is going to help us get through some roadblocks. Some of the things we're going to do is going to help give them the guidance they need to keep moving forward to that goal of having a complete vision for the comprehensive plan. And with that in mind too, I want to ask task force members if in some cases you all are going to be okay with meeting maybe more than once a month, and also doing some fun things now that, you know, I don't know if, just think about it, like if we do some site tours and some on-site discussions at places for some task force meetings, do you want to do that on like a Saturday morning a few times, or do you want to do it, take advantage of hopefully a little more daylight that's coming our way sometime soon, and do those kinds of things, you know, around 6:30 or 6:45, and then have a place to come back and talk about some of the things we saw like here. So, you know, just what are your ideas for how we want to interact? We want to be in person as much as possible, but then some cases, if we load up on 2 meetings in a month, maybe we do the in-person stuff first and then go back and then come back together and talk about, you know, what needs, you know, what we, you know, wrap up any loose ends from those discussions too virtually. From the staff standpoint, you know, our time is your time. So we just kind of want to know, you know, get some ideas of how you all want to do this. And, you know, like I'm saying, keep everything going parallel to what the consultants are doing.
If we're moving along and we get some momentum going, and I'll speak for myself, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get things going forward, get some momentum, get some input. I think it's great that we're meeting in person again, and just kind of see everybody. Sometimes when you're on Zoom, people blacked out the screen and they're muted, and it's like they're not even participating in there. And this environment, nobody gets that option, right? An alternative to everybody. You know, and we get everybody consistently vocal in, you know, we need participation from everybody. Pretty much everybody here was picked by Supervisor Stork, and it represents either a demographic or a particular geographical area. And we need that input from everybody so that we get the best product that is for you know, everybody, not just
part of Lorton. So.
Can you go back to the calendar?
Yeah.
Schedule.
Which is a little aggressive. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Aggressive, good.
I know. But yeah, we want to be wrapped up by September. Yeah.
So I agree with Nick, but as long as there's a plan.
Yes.
For Saturday, I don't wanna get up at 6:45 and leave to, you know, mess around. As long as there's a plan.
Well, and when we have those, when we have that kind of offering, we're also gonna be looking for any input you want to have on the plan, you know.
Well, let's get that before we.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that before we do anything. Before we do anything on a weekend, we'll definitely have a plan. But you know, it may be an out. Staff may give you an outline, but if there's things, we don't want this to be a situation where you feel like staff is going to tell you what you're going to do. If we say we want to go in the field, and we have a list of 3 things, you know, and you want to add 3 more things, that's what we're going to be looking to the task force for, you know. Driving home.
These were Renaissance initiatives.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
the
Vision plan.
what we were talking about in terms of what staff would be doing in parallel to get us as close as we can to when we start doing impact analysis based on what sort of things we're talking about, where like transportation study gets looked in. So like, we wouldn't have public hearings in September. This is like finishing with Renaissance and getting from our end, from the staff end, as close as we are to draft like plan language and all of that sort of thing. So that we can do that analysis. And then move forward with recommendations on public hearings. So that might be like early next year. So end of September is your finished product. And we're gonna be working on it simultaneously while they're working on their stuff, or they're gonna be done and then you start. No, we don't want to wait for them to be done. So, you know, we have the visioning language and that sort of thing that would be in the comp plan. So as much as we can do without the specifics of, you know, changes in land use.
The stuff, the transportation.
So I think the public hearings, would likely be early next year, but early yes, but we don't have everything as close as we can get. That information. But I just didn't want folks to think we would, you know, be at the board as soon as we're. But I recognize wanting to finish. I do just priority for us too.
It's not, and we've given all the different options. So I think if we have more momentum, more frequency starting off, and then get our sea legs, you know, understand where we're gonna go, that would make it better.
All right.
Because then the conversations are more resonated in our minds versus meeting every 2-3 months. Right?
Yeah.
And now that we can be in person, like, you know, we'll get more intensity and more participation.
And there's also likely to be some times when staff will send you some stuff as homework. You know, we may send you some stuff between meetings, and you know, want you to come prepared with that information. Like as we work on the draft vision, when there's something that we're going to want you all to discuss and hash out during a task force meeting, we're going to send that to you ahead of time so you can read through it, and then, you know.
If it's collaboration sites like Google Docs, where they put comments and questions, et cetera, and we don't necessarily have to wait till we get here, all see that we have similar questions.
And what was that?
Google Docs.
Oh, Google Docs, I think.
Just collaborate.
Or anything, collaboration, I feel like Google Docs is used in school.
Right.
Maybe
there another
here
comment?
make a preference for evenings
Evenings, okay.
as opposed. That would be my preference
Instead of Saturday.
instead of Saturday. Lots of family commitments. It's just can be.
I agree. No, just joking.
And I have a comment with staff. Make sure staff understands. That positively, but I recognize there are many complications and many challenges to doing and getting anywhere and moving things forward in through land use planning special. Spaces are tough, whether there's sewer, whether there's BQCs, whether there's environmentally sensitive streams. All of those things are challenges. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't be looked at. They're just their challenges. And if they were simple and easy, as they always say in real estate, it would have been done already. So yes, we are left with lots of hard things, but that doesn't mean we're trying to create a vision, and we ought to try to think, as Vic said, let's be bold. Let's try to think, let's come up with a vision that is actually something to aspire to, and not something that is, okay, a little here or there. Well, okay, we've given you one of these, we put one of those, we've checked this box, we've checked that box. Let's create a bolder vision. And let's try to figure out, let somebody else figure out how to some extent, how to get there.
And one of the things that we talked about at the staff level too is we do the vision, and then even as we get into the land use recommendations, we also need to have some flexibility, because you want to have a plan is sustainable. You want to have a plan where in 2 years, 3 years, someone doesn't come along and say, hey, it's great that you're doing this and you have my attention now, but you have to change this, and that. So we're kind of trying to get at that's what we're gonna have to work together to do too. You know,
but here's a thought I've been having, and I was gonna like just get you offline and talk to you about what I'm supposed to say. I haven't read the policy part of the plan in a couple of years, so I'm not reading there. But off the top of my head, I can't think of a single thing that we've talked about now that's not allowed in the current comprehensive plan in the policy part. It's very loose. It talks about town centers, talks about density, all those kind of things. So I think we're gonna have to come up with some documents and some drawings and stuff like that that sell the ideas that the current comprehensive plan frankly already allows. And in doing that, you may actually start to limit the comprehensive plan. I'm not advocating any one way to approach it. I'm just telling you the current comprehensive plan, when you said we need to give flexibility, the current comprehensive plan is loose and flexible right now. What we have to, I think, come up with is a vision that we sell to developers, so they want to come out here to develop this vision as much as the language that allows it, because I think the language that allows it, something that we can.
Good stuff.
And we're definitely looking at, you know, it as we think about what changes, we definitely want to think about what's there already too, and you know, not throwing everything out, but maybe there's new ways to organize what's there, you know. So maybe you know, there's the town center guidance, but then maybe there becomes something that expands outside of the town center guidance, because we're now talking about a central area that you want people to have better access to what was the town center, you know, and then what supports the town center outside of the town center too.
Something sort of the policy part of the plan, which includes everything.
Yeah.
That I think it's a very like sometimes it gets just
Yeah.
Say at 20 years, there's a general theme, and when we get into an area of study, to make sure we're looking at it with an eye towards what Steve was saying in terms of a level of flexibility, so that we don't see a bunch of plan amendments in 2 years.
Site-specific plan amendments.
That are, you know, where the plan guidance, when you get into the area plan guidance, land use sector is too specific. So that is a shared goal, I would say, that, you know, we want to kind of set the parameters based on the vision, but not get so prescriptive that we're actually talking about a particular site and share. So.
And to amplify what Leanne's saying, and please, I'll try to be kind, but I'm not usually that way. You guys need to get to the higher ups of land use planning, because there are mindsets and constructs that they already have in place for Lorton that they don't change. We found that during the site-specific planning process. An excellent example of exactly what we've been talking about, and was just by staff outright rejected. Not even interested in exploring or anything, looking further or anything else. And if we're talking about getting private investment coming in, it doesn't help Ryan staff says, well, that's I-5, I-6. It's not gonna, we don't have enough I, so we're not changing any of that. Well, you change the Westfield's business park. I know that real clearly. That was a non-walking school in 1999, 2000. It was built and open. But now you've built 550 some units in there. And now kids have to walk, which means paths have to be improved. They have to be lit. All of that has to happen, crossing guards and lights, which none of which was there before. So I don't know how we can do that in one section of the county and then not extend that to another.
I think that, and we can talk about that one offline, that was a study of land unit day, it was a larger study. We could look at the impact outside of one site, and I know that's a couple parts of it, so it's not enough the work program development, and so if it's that one site, then we don't, then it's not a high priority. Let's look at industrial uses, or larger area there. That's a different question, right? For land unit day, I hear that, I heard your comment. Land unit day was a study with the task force that's kind of looking at that, and how do you design it? We have plan guidance about eating schools, and how do you address the conflicts that could happen, so it's just that larger look, and so,
But to Dale's important to look at. To Dale's point, we shouldn't not consider something, like maybe you come up with something creative and wacky, but that's awesome. We should not consider it because there's currently a cement plant there. I know, I'm not even gonna look at Leanna while I'm saying that, but the supervisor, I know, is open to other things.
Yeah, and I think part of that question becomes, how do we, I guess, how are we looking at the strategic plan for economic success that mentions industrial areas? There are certain areas that are planned for industrial. There are industrial areas inside of suburban centers and inside of, in some cases, near or inside of community business centers. So when we start talking about Lorton, South Route 1 as a suburban center, the vision for that, I think part of what you do in the visioning kind of lets you determine how you, or lets you explore more into how you might view some of those industrial areas inside the suburban center. Is that correct, Leanna? So it's not really apples and oranges when you look at some of the things that land use policy has to be weighed against, like the strategic plan for economic success. That talks about industrial areas. The county's planned industrial areas. So we kind of look at those differently. Sometimes there's maybe room for change, maybe room for movement. And when you think about all these things, also keep in mind that even if you're calling something industrial, there are all these other things that kind of are flexed into industrial areas. Now, it may not be residential or something like that, but a lot of places you go to, that's where the breweries are coming online. Yeah. That's where distilleries are in these industrial areas. That's where the places where kids jump and play in some places are, like the indoor recreational centers and things like that. So there's some flexibility between industrial and residential that may not say that these places are ready for residential, but there's something in between that can be of better community benefit than you may think a cement plant is. So think about those kinds of things as we talk about these things. It doesn't have to be a total flip, but there's some things, there's different grades of change that you can kind of consider as you consider your vision. So.
Plans to take place, what is 2035?
30 and beyond. The DRT, our phase 3 of DRT.
Phase 3 DRT, which is Belmore to Woodbridge, is not really on it. They're still working on the northern two bases. We're definitely going to consider the DRT with this plan. We want to get working on it.
As well as the widening of the Amtrak lanes and the CSX and all of that, because that's going to take land someplace in order to do that. That right now might be listed as I, but it might be listed as commercial. And in order to expand the possibilities for that. It's crazy.
Only make it back.
Into the eye, not into the R.
Okay. All right. Thanks. We are just about at time. We're gonna let you guys go. We thank you. We're so happy to be here. We look forward to this process and Steve will regather you for our next meeting, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.